Hello, I'm doing another video on the move. I'm outside, it's really windy today, so hopefully there's not too much back wind and static in the sound here, but we can power through this real quick. So you are watching this video, you're probably wondering, how am I gonna pass my Army OCS board interview? So right off the top, I just wanna say that this is not a military board style interview, right? This is not a military-esque board. So if you are prior service and you're familiar with that, or maybe you've been doing your research and you are maybe expecting some certain things, you can kind of put your mind at ease and let that go. It is not a military style board. It really is just a job interview. They will tell you that. They're going to reiterate it multiple times probably as you're going up to the interview process the day of. You're going to hear it. I'm just going to tell you now again ahead of time. You're going to hear it a bunch. Okay, so really the only military-esque style of the whole thing is that they'll show you the room where you're going to be doing the interview. You'll walk up to the door, you'll knock in sequence 3 times, boom, 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 wait until they tell you to enter. You enter the door, close it behind you, and then walk, or kind of march, if you will, to the front of the table where the board members will be sitting, in front of the seat where you will eventually sit down, and start off by saying your common pleasantry for whatever the time of the day it is. So maybe that's good morning or good afternoon. So walk, knock, 1, 2, 3, enter, walk in, close the door behind you, walk over in front of the table and say, good morning, members of the board, state your name, in my case, Christopher Springer, reporting for the OCS interview. Just like that, nice, short and sweet. Your pleasantry, say hello, introduce yourself, reporting while you're there, reporting, and stop talking. And they'll say something back to you, please be seated. And at that point, you'll sit down, and then the head of the board will run you down what to expect, how this is gonna go, and start rocking and roll from there. So how you can expect it to go is that there will be most likely be 3 people that are doing the board. They will be, it really just kind of varies in rank. I was told that most of the time the head of the board is going to be either a major or a captain, and then the 2 other people with them will be captains or below. In my case, it was the head of our board was the head of the battalion for the area, who was a newly promoted colonel. So the head of our board was a colonel, full bird, just promoted, and the other 2 were both captains. So pretty well stacked, and basically he just said, after he told me to sit down, he introduced himself and went through the whole thing, and then just kind of introduced himself, told me what to expect, how it's going to go, passed it off to the other 2 to introduce themselves, and then he started it off and kept it moving. And the whole thing for me was about 7 or 8 questions, and a mix of questions for me. So I'm prior service, so there were questions that were specifically related to that experience, and they kind of targeted some questions that way for me. Others were pretty standard that they asked everybody, and ones that you can probably have found online. So I will post down below in the descriptions the questions that they asked me, and questions that I found online that I used to prep, and a few others that were recommended the day of, as I kind of found out from other recruiters. Every recruiter is going to kind of give you different levels of advice and expertise. There was at least 1 recruiter office that actually did practice board interviews with the 2 or 3 people that they brought with them. There were 8 of us total for the day. I was the last one to go. So the good news for you going in is that the board is not there to kick people out. They want to pass people, and they are there to pass people. The battalion wants their recruiting record to look good, so they want to pass along as many people to the big Army board as they possibly can to increase their chances of people getting selected. So they're not really there to say no, they are there to say yes. So you can take good comfort in that. Maybe that'll help you ease your mind, relax a little bit. It didn't really for me, as I watched everybody get a yes throughout the day. I was still a little bit nervous going in and really studying my questions and practicing over and over, repeating things in my mind all day long. like other people I found online, which is pretty limited, which is one of the reasons I'm making this video, finding information about the board was pretty limited, and the whole process is a bit secretive and, whatnot. But, it typically seems to range somewhere between 7 and 9 questions. Seems to be this case for most people that I have found or interacted with. The board, a whole process from the time that you get there to the time you leave, probably going to be about 4 or 5 hours. Again, 8 people, it still probably took us about 4 hours. I've heard one person's video I watched, it was only like 2 of them, and it still took like 4 hours. So, I don't know. It's just the way it seems to go. So it's a whole day affair, half day affair, I guess you could say, and they'll get rocking and rolling probably somewhere between 8:30 and 9 in the morning, and whenever they end. Lord willing, you won't have a lunch break in between. So hopefully you don't have more people than we did, because we were really bumping into a late lunch hour, and those last few interviews of the day, they really started rolling. So that's kind of a running joke there. It's like closer you get to lunchtime, the faster it goes, so they want to eat. A little slower if you're going first thing in the morning. So the whole thing, though, it's very conversational, and it's nothing serious. There's no kind of gotcha questions necessarily. It's really just kind of there to figure out who you are, why you want to do this job. Do you kind of understand what the role of an officer is, and move it forward from there. So starting off, the colonel asked me to just start off by giving a little backstory about myself, and then end with answering the question, why do you want to be an officer? So the key piece of advice is that essay that you write, why do I want to be an Army officer, make sure that you have reread that a couple times, that you really have that solidified in your mind, because you need to be able to kind of regurgitate that in a little bit even more of a condensed form than your one-page essay to be able to answer that question. You will receive that question. No matter whose board you're a part of, this is the one question that will be a part of every single board, which is, why do you want to be an officer, or why do you want to be an Army officer? So some variation of that question, either one of the two of those, but that will be the question that you receive. You need to have an answer to that. You need to be able to regurgitate your essay in a nice condensed form that answers that question well. Then I was asked, what is a leadership strength of mine, and what, if any, is a leadership quality that I need to improve in? So I answered both of that. Strengths, pretty easy. Weaknesses are a little harder to come by, I'd say, for me, and probably for most people. But I was able to think of one on the spot and answer that kind of accordingly. So consider that. Leadership strengths and weaknesses. What personal strengths and weaknesses do you have? That could be a question. It's kind of an interview question. It could be one that you receive in your board as well. I was also asked about my family. I'm married, so they asked if my wife was okay with this job, if she was okay, if she supported me, what that kind of dynamic was like. Is she ready for me to leave? Because you could get selected and then up and leave very quickly, and then kind of a moment's notice. So do you have your personal affairs in order? Is kind of what they were asking, and the gist of that. And the other person, the captain sitting to my right, they really just asked 2 questions. They asked about my job choices. So, one of the things that you fill out in your packet is a list of 10 choices that you rank from 1 to 10. And so I was asked about my top job choice, or top 3, and just kind of why I chose those ones. So, have a good answer for that, and kind of understand, the process. They also explained, like in the Army, you go in active duty, you don't get to a guaranteed job. So you will find out when you are at OCS based off of the order of merit list and your preferences. So it's kind of a combination of those things. And so knowing that you might not get the job that you want, how would that make you feel? And that was my second question from him, is like, if you didn't get the top choice that you wanted, how would you feel about that? And so I answered that. I was coached on that question as well to kind of expect that one. I think that one's fairly common. You could probably expect that one in your board as well. They're going to ask you about your job choices. They're going to ask you if you understand the process and if you're okay not getting your top job choice. And let me just give you the piece of advice that I was given as well. The only appropriate answer is, of course, that you are okay. You just want to be an officer. It doesn't really matter what the job is. And that was essentially the gist of my question. You know, I really want to rejoin the military. I want to be an officer in the military specifically, and so I am okay not necessarily getting my top job choice. I definitely would love to be in my top 3, but my main thing is I want to serve the country. I want to serve soldiers. I want to serve people in the military. I want to be back in that life, and that is my top goal. So as long as I'm getting selected, I'll be A-okay. And that was basically my answer, almost verbatim. And that's genuinely how I feel, so I can answer that with full confidence. The other captain sitting on my left, to my left, they also just asked me like 2 questions, and he had a similar story to mine. He started off as an enlisted Navy guy, and then joined as a reserve Army officer, then went active duty Army officer, so that was kind of his story and career. And so given that, he decided to ask me some more Navy kind of specific questions. And so he asked, what do I envision my life like as an officer? Knowing that the differences between that sort of officer and enlisted dynamic is very different between how the Navy operates and how the Army operates. And so I kind of answered that as well. So, and that's a good question. It's a fair question. You could maybe expect some questions that are not necessarily super standard across the board, because they might ask you something that's kind of specific to you, in your case, in your history, your background. And so for me, having prior enlisted background, being an NCO in the Navy, being an enlisted Navy individual, he wanted to know my kind of thoughts and stances on that. And I don't remember the other question he asked me off the top of my head right now. Maybe it'll come back to me. Let's see, what else was that? What else was I asked? I was also asked, let's see, about my family, strengths and weaknesses. I was also asked, and this was one that came up pretty common in kind of advice and coaching from other people online, from recruiters, is why do you want to be an officer? In the sense of understanding, do you understand the difference between enlisted and officers, or an NCO and officers? Something to that effect. For me, I was asked, and this is a pretty common question that I found online as well, which is, being an officer, how will you react and respond to the fact that there are going to be higher enlisted individuals that will know more than you? They're going to have more technical expertise. They're going to be potentially younger than you are, or older than you are, and they're going to be the experts. They're going to know what to do and how to do things. Like, how are you going to receive that feedback? How are you going to handle that relationship and dynamic, knowing that you are the boss and ultimately responsible? So you need to have a good answer for that. Know the difference between NCOs and officers, because if you just want to be in charge, or if you want to be, the one on the front lines, if you want to be shooting the gun, if you want more of that sort of tactical aspect to the role, you just want to be in charge, you want to lead people, that's not enough. You can do that on the enlisted side. You can do that as you rank up and become a non-commissioned officer, as a senior enlisted individual. That role has that. So you need to understand the difference and have a broader understanding, a broader perspective, a broader picture to be able to answer that question well. And so know that as well. There might be one other question that I just can't remember right now. I'm already almost 15 minutes of the video. I don't want to take up too much of your guys' time. So down in the description box below, I will list out every single question that was asked of me, and other questions that I found online that I used to kind of coach myself up and develop some answers, some other questions that I got the day of as well. So yeah, I'll be putting those all down in the description below to kind of help you guys out and walk you through the process. So best of luck to you in your interview, and hope you have all the success in the world. Oh, also, I will put the score how you are scored, because you are scored out of 25 possible points on your board over, like, I think 9 categories. And so my recruiter called me a few days later with the results, and I got a perfect score on my board. I got a 25 out of 25, max points in all categories. And so they score you on things like personal affairs, being in order, your attire, your personal grooming. So show up in suit and tie. You got to be dressed to impress. Personal appearance, personal affairs, confidence, things like that. So I'll do my best to kind of remember what those 9 scores are. Maybe I'll do a quick search, see if I can find exactly what they are, because he just rattled through them real quickly. So yeah, there you go. Best of luck to you. Looking forward to seeing you out there in the field.